Hello and welcome to this review of the VKB Gladiator NXT. In the beginning of September, VKB sent me the Gladiator NXT for testing. I already own a Gladiator Mark II, so I was pleasantly surprised that VKB contacted me and is giving me this opportunity to review a newer product. A review opportunity of this magnitude is certainly a first for me, but I also have to say at this point here that they really didn't pay me or something like this, nor did they have any say in the content of this video. They will watch for the first time when it's on my public YouTube page. And as you may notice, they sent it to me end of September and we have now end of December, so I really took my time with this one. In this video we will take a look at the stick, how it handles and how it compares against other sticks I used in the past. I will talk about things I like, I dislike, and I try to argue as factually as possible so you get an impression of the stick's features and limits. I will review the stick as someone who is mostly enjoying World War II flight sims, especially IL-2 Great Battles. At the time of creating this video, my heart consisted out of MFG Crosswind pedals and a Thrustmaster TWCS throttle. VKB sent me the right-hand premium version of the GNX, which comes with a few extras over the standard version. But we come to that later again. Both versions, premium and standard, are available for left and right-handed players. When it arrives, base and grip are separated and you need to assemble it. All necessary tools are in the package and assembling is quite easy, and there are even tutorial videos of VKB how to do it. VKB calls the grip the Cosmos Zebra grip, and this is the only grip the GNX gets sold with at the moment. The grip feels good, very robust and precise. It's made out of plastic, however it does not feel cheap or anything, does not feel thin or brittle. It's a quite large grip compared to my old Mark II or the T16000M I had 2 years ago, but the stick never feels clumsy or too large. Compared to the sticks I used, the tension springs are quite strong and needed quite some time to get used to, but overall I see this as an improvement over my Mark II, which was always too easy to move for my liking. When the stick is fully deflected, the stick travels back to the center position at a constant speed. There is no snapping or wobbling, just one steady speed back to center. The premium version of the stick comes with replacement springs, so theoretically I could swap them for lighter ones, which maybe would help controlling the propeller planes. But honestly, I like the tension how it is right now, and I would probably need to adjust again, which I wouldn't like. The stick comes with a medium springs pre-assembled, and you have lighter and heavier ones. The stick also features a twist axis if you don't own rudder pedals. I personally do not need that axis, but as far as I can tell, the axis feels just as fine as the rest of the stick. If you don't like that twist, you can use a small screw on the base of the joystick to lock it in place. My contact at VKB told me that more grips are planned to be released for the GNX system, and I personally liked my German KG grip of my Mark II a lot, and I hope that one day it makes a comeback for the GNX. That said, with the current base of the GNX, I wouldn't like to have a grip with less buttons. But we come back to that later. Speaking of buttons, let's talk about buttons of the GNX and let's talk about the triggers first. The red one here is a two-stage trigger. The first one engages right away with a distinct click sound when you pull a little, and the second stage with a less noticeable click when you fully depress the trigger. Not going to lie, the two-stage trigger is kinda pointless in IL-2, but I know that, for example, the A10 in DCS benefits a lot from a two-stage trigger. The first stage is stabilizing the plane and the second stage is releasing the gun. I personally use the first stage, in IL-2 of course, to fire my small caliber guns on my fighter aircraft. The black trigger above has little travel and engages with a very crisp trigger point. Pleasantly to use, I use it to fire all my guns, so it's my main trigger. Pushing the trigger away from the grip is another button. I personally see no use for that at the moment, but who knows, maybe I come up with something at some point. The entire trigger is a feature of the premium version and not present on the standard version. If you don't want to have that trigger on your premium stick for whatever reason, you can remove it and replace it with a cover which is in the package of the premium stick. This grey button on the back of the grip can be pressed with the pinky. It's just a button and I use it as my push to talk button for SRS and TeamSpeak. There's another button on the top, can be used similarly. I do not use it at the moment, but I'm sure I come up with something at some point. Let us take a look at the front panel of the stick. The red button here is just a simple button. I use it to trigger my cannon caliber guns. And these stick up here in the middle and top right are both 5-way head switches, meaning that they can be moved in 4 directions and they can be depressed. So I use the center one, for example, for all my trim input like elevator, aileron and rudder, and the top right one I use, for example, for my tailwheel lock, parking brakes and cockpit light. The stick here in the top left is another premium feature. It is a mini stick here, so like you know from Xbox controllers or PlayStation 5 controllers, so it's freely movable in all directions, so it's an axis instead of buttons. And this one is a premium feature, meaning on the standard version of the stick is another head switch in this place here, and if you want, the head switch is also in the package of the premium one. If you want to plug this one out and just put another head switch in, you can do that, no problem. The grey stick down here is another 5-way head switch, just like the other 2 in the top here, and nothing special about it. It's another premium feature, meaning that in the standard version of the stick there's just another button here. The thing is, in actuality, I use this head switch just as a button. My hands are quite large, and to control my prop plane accurately, I grip the stick with my entire hand. This means my thumb it's either wrapped around the grip or is reaching out to use the buttons on the head of the grip. Controlling the directions on the head switch is awkward and not really feasible. I tried, but notice how I accidentally pushed the switch into directions I didn't want to. So for now I use it only as a button to release bombs, and I would not miss a thing if it would be just this standard button, to which I could of course downgrade if I wanted to, no problem. The button is of course also in the package. Now let's get to the base of the joystick. There are 3 buttons on the top and 2 rotaries and a throttle axis on the front. Sadly, the rotaries are in IL-2 not super useful, but can be used just like repeated button presses. For example, to adjust the aileron and rudder trim. I don't have them bound to anything at the moment. I use the throttle axis for my mixture, the 3 buttons to disable and enable engine systems, but that's about it. But that's really it. There are no more buttons on the back of the stick, not on the sides. That's really it. The base plate is solid metal, very sturdy, is very heavy as well, so keeping the stick in place at any point in time. It's fantastic, it feels very stable. And there are holes in the plate, so mounting it on a chair mount or something like this should be absolutely no problem. And you maybe heard it already, I'm a bit disappointed by the number of buttons on the base. The old Mark II featured 13 buttons on the base and a throttle axis and a mode switch button, which practically doubled the possible button assignments. And the rest of the old bindings I had on the base went either to the grip or went to my keyboard again, which is a bit of a downgrade, I have to say. Things like opening and closing the canopy, the tailwheel locks or TeamSpeak channel switching for my FTC flyouts. I would really love to keep those things on the base, things I feel they belong there. That said, VKB has software available where you can reassign button functionalities. For example, I could reconfigure this button on the back of the joystick to behave like a switch button. That would then in turn maybe double the button binds. However, having more buttons already on the base, I would say, is better than just to have 3 buttons to begin with. So the base is overall a bit underwhelming. My guess is that VKB has reduced the available buttons to make the button boxes and modular systems they are going to release the next couple of months a bit more attractive. Fair enough, I guess, but it feels like a downgrade over the older and cheaper Mark II. I hope that in future releases of VKB maybe a more complex base for affordable prices, or a revision of this base here are going to be available to mitigate those shortcomings. So all in all, when should you consider buying the GNX? To summarize, you get, for a very good price, you get a very good flight stick. Much higher quality than the entry-level joysticks like the T16000M. More accurate, longer lasting. Yes, the price is a little higher than entry sticks, but the quality to price ratio is, in my opinion, much better. I would say that the stick is for people who want to start flight simming right now and are willing to spend a little bit more for a quality product, or for players whose cheap hardware is breaking down at the moment and they are considering a step up. The stick is for people who have already a dedicated throttle or a button box and are looking now for a fitting joystick. The stick can be for sure used as a standalone, but honestly the small throttle on the base here is not going to cut it in the long run for dedicated sim players. But overall, a pretty nice stick. I really like it. I really like the accuracy, the feeling of it. I have no complaints about that. If you want to save a few euros, you could consider getting the standard version instead of the premium version. You should think about what you really want with those additional sticks and extras the premium comes with. I personally would only miss the nice black trigger on the back. I really like that crisp feeling of the release here. Other than that, the stick is pretty good even in the standard version. So if you want to save 40 euros, you should contemplate that. I love the handling, the precision, the weight of the stick, and I had quite some fun with it. So thank you for the opportunity for the review here, and I see you in the next one.